NBA's hidden gem, from thug to superstar. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 31. Hey, buddy. Long time no see. Charlotte, Bughead Community. In the Angel Bar, Karen Butler met his former best friend, Thomas Marvin. The media and fans always speculate which players in the league have gang backgrounds. For example, our social melon, our hard special, our skin 11 knife. These players have no actual basis. But Karen Butler is different. At the age of 10, he came into contact with drugs. At the age of 11, he began to participate in drug trafficking. At the age of 12, he used the money from drug trafficking to buy a pistol and officially joined the gang. At the age of 15, his companion was killed in a drug transaction, and he was arrested for carrying drugs and guns. In that transaction, another companion was Thomas Marvin in front of him. That imprisonment was just one of Karen Butler's many arrests. Before adulthood, he was imprisoned 15 times. However, that time in prison changed Karen Butler's life. In the juvenile reformatory, Karen Butler came into contact with basketball. In the end, he became a rookie of the same class as Yao Ming, the 10th pick in 2002. Thomas. Karen Butler patted Thomas's back vigorously, his eyes full of memories. Come here to play the game? Thomas looked at Karen Butler in front of him, but his expression was a little complicated. When they met again, they were already people on different paths. But Thomas quickly put aside such emotions. Yeah. I heard Jackson mention that you were in Charlotte recently, so I thought about coming to meet you. Karen Butler said with a smile. It's true that he turned over a new leaf, but it's impossible to say that he became a modest gentleman like Grant Hill and Ray Allen, who kept himself clean. Go to nightclubs every night, then play music and dance. It's just that there are some things that Karen Butler no longer touches. Then you're just in time. We have a big move tonight. Everything is ready. We won't go home until we're drunk after this. Thomas lowered his voice and said mysteriously. Big move? Karen Butler frowned. Gangs are just those things after all. Go to the lower 3 roads and start occupying territory after becoming bigger. Basically, that's it, because if you get bigger, you will encounter dimensionality reduction attacks from the people above. Gangs without background are just a bubble. The bigger they are, the faster they burst. In the eyes of big people, the bottom gangs in the slums are just children's games. However, these children's games deeply affect the lives of the bottom people. These are the insights that Karen Butler gained after playing in the league. Do you know what this place is most famous for? Hi. Loans. The loan sharks here are very rich. We set up a trap and took the opportunity to attack them. After that, we can open a breakthrough and occupy a piece of territory here. Then the situation will be opened up. Thomas smiled triumphantly. Come on. Meet more old friends. Without waiting for Karen Butler to speak, Thomas pulled him and his former best buddies to greet one by one. Karen. Come to play the game. Yo. Karen. It's been a long time since I last saw you. Hey. Karen. Do you still owe me a few hundred yuan? Haha. Get lost. Karen Butler smiled and greeted everyone. This atmosphere made him feel familiar and strange. Karen Butler did not forget his identity at this time. He was a player of the Lakers and no longer a member of this place. He was going to leave after a drink. Raphael. Is this bar okay? This is not the one Wang recommended before. At the entrance of the Angel Bar, Raphael Aluyu appeared with Gerald Wallace and Brevin Knight. He knows nothing. I mean, Wang's information is out of date. What he said were popular 6 months ago, and this is the most popular one now. Just listen to me. Raphael Aluyu waved at the two of them, and they walked in together. Raphael Aluyu was very unhappy in the Bobcats. A second-round pick who didn't get too many opportunities. Being forced to wave a towel on the sidelines in every game, and it was for Wang Ke, which made Raphael Aluyu sick. But he had no choice now, he could only endure silently. Once a lone genius, now becomes the social butterfly of the team. Raphael Aluyu put down his attitude and carried bags, washed shoes, and underwear for the old players in the team. Therefore, he had a good relationship with most of the players in the Bobcats. Senior. Be more aggressive tonight, bring a stick, and swing it when necessary. Don't learn to be like Wang. You don't have the body like Wang. Barton Locke gave Senior Irving a new debt collection task. Because of Wang Ke, he still took good care of Senior. The debt collection was arranged to be easy to deal with. The debt collection target this time was a timid outsider. Outsiders, even if they were dragons, had to lie down here honestly. Senior's debt collection this time was just a formality. Barton Locke only hoped that the outsider had something that he could squeeze. At 12 o'clock in the evening, Karen Butler and Thomas had a few drinks. Seeing that it was getting late, they were ready to leave. There is a game tomorrow night. During the offseason, Karen Butler was sent to the Lakers in the trade between the Heat and the Lakers O'Neal. This season in the Lakers, Karen Butler played well and quickly found his position. With Kobe incarnating as the Pennsylvania Magician, Karen Butler, Kobe, and Odom formed the Iron Triangle of the Lakers. Karen Butler played very comfortably. He also knew that Kobe's requirements were very high. If he affected the game tomorrow night because he drank too much tonight, Kobe would definitely spray him to death. "Brother, I'm ready to go. There's a game tomorrow night." Karen Butler patted Thomas on the shoulder. After all, they were not on the same path. "Okay. Come on for the game tomorrow night. I won't go to watch it." Just as Thomas was about to say goodbye to Karen Butler, he suddenly saw the gesture his companion made to him. "Karen. Do as you please." Thomas left quickly and walked into a box. Then, Karen Butler saw a middle-aged man being dragged in. After a while, a thin little man also walked into the box, followed by many people. Karen Butler knew at a glance that this was a local gang leader. It seems that Thomas and his team did not force it completely, but chose to cooperate with the local gang to play such a trick. A wailing sound soon came from the box. Such a scene was a small scene for Karen Butler. He used to experience such things every day. Karen Butler sat down again. Curiosity kills the cat. When Mike Robert walked into the box, his brows frowned, and there was a smell of blood. A middle-aged man was lying on the ground like a dead pig, and he was already unconscious from being beaten. Mike Robert shook his head. "Can such a person be a debt collector? Have you called his boss?" Mike Robert asked. "Yes." Guess what his boss said on the phone? "We have offended someone we shouldn't have offended. Let's send him back quickly." "Oh. I'm so scared." Hanson stepped forward and kicked, causing the middle-aged man to groan again. Mike Robert frowned again, and he felt a little unhappy that outsiders were so arrogant here. If it weren't for the fact that his gang had been having a miserable time recently, he would not be willing to cooperate with outsiders. On the other hand, Mike Robert was indeed jealous of the money in the hands of these loan sharks. "Wake him up." Mike Robert poured a glass of water on the middle-aged man's face. There are countless loan sharks in the middle and lower classes of Charlotte. Mike Robert has to find out who is the one who attacked this time. "Fuck. You bunch of scum." "Ah." The middle-aged man who woke up cursed and was punched again. "Break one of his hands." Hanson ordered coldly. "Wait." Mike Robert suddenly found that this middle-aged man looked familiar. After thinking of a possibility, Mike Robert's little heart suddenly beat uncontrollably. No way. It shouldn't be such a coincidence. "Are you called Senior Irving?" Mike Robert came to the middle-aged man and asked. "I'm your father." The middle-aged man cursed. "I'm asking you seriously. Are you called Senior Irving?" "Irving. Do you have a sister named Claudia Irving?" Mike Robert grabbed the middle-aged man by the collar and yelled. Hanson and Thomas, outsiders, all showed puzzled expressions on their faces. Do they know each other? It can't be that the flood has washed away the Dragon King Temple. It doesn't look like it. "If you dare to touch my sister, I will kill you." The middle-aged man suddenly ran away, but was held down tightly, and the expression on his face had become ferocious. "Oh. My God. How could this happen?" Mike Robert let go of Senior, his eyes were a little dazed. The figure of the giant began to appear in Mike Robert's mind again. The pain in his shoulder came again, and Mike Robert was on the verge of madness. "You are so sick. Don't you investigate before doing anything? It's better now, haha. Why do you want to mess with him when you can mess with anyone else? Cooperation cancelled. Let's go." Mike Robert turned around and left without any hesitation. Such determination made Hanson and his gang of outsiders stunned. Did they really mess with someone they shouldn't mess with? It shouldn't be. They investigated. A small loan shark boss. Several debt collectors. How could such a few people not be messed with? To be honest, the small loan shark boss is above the credit subsidiary of Wachovia Bank in the United States. But how could such a big company care about a small role? There are several levels in between. "Mike, what do you mean? What do you think this is? Come as you please and leave as you please?" Hanson's face was already full of ruthlessness. When facing a local tyrant, a dragon from another country must be ruthless. If any local gang goes back on their word and ignores them, how can they gain a foothold here? What do you want? Mike Robert pulled out a pistol. Oh. Sheet. Look who that is? Oh no. He's not here to block us. It's over, I'm going to be sprayed to death by him when I go back. The coach won't let me sit on the bench, will he? What are you afraid of? What's wrong with going to a nightclub? Who doesn't go to a nightclub? That's right, maybe he's here to go to a nightclub too. How could he know we're here? TSK. He's one thing on the surface and another behind the scenes. He should have been caught by us. Raphael Arroyo, Gerald Wallace, and Brevin Knight are having a lot of fun here tonight. However, there will be a game tomorrow night, so they still retain a bit of rationality and know not to have too much fun. Just as they were about to leave, they saw Wang Ke. After a brief panic, the three of them were a little curious about what Wang Ke was doing here. Raphael Arroyo felt even more excited. This was a chance to catch Wang Ke's little braid. See how I can turn the tables. Wang Ke did not notice his teammates. After a glance at the inner court, he came to the door of a box. Wang Ke frowned even deeper. He smelled blood. Episode 32. Bang! The door of the box was opened. The people who were confronting each other inside were stunned for a moment, because the person who came in was a little too tall. Giant. It's not me. It has nothing to do with me. Damn it. Mike Robert made a tactical retreat and rushed out the door. At the same time, Wang Ke saw Senior covered in bruises. The next second. Bang. Bang. Ah. Fuck. Bang. Gunshots rang out. Bang. Another one. The people outside heard it clearly this time, and they all ran out of the bar screaming. Raphael Arroyo, Gerald Wallace, and Brevin Knight had no intention of looking at Wang Ke, and ran out with the crowd. It's over. Wang entered the box. How is he? Should we go, help him? Gerald Wallace spoke subconsciously. Do you dare? Brevin Knight took a deep breath. Gerald Wallace's momentum weakened. He didn't dare. Raphael Arroyo had been silent at this time, his legs were shaking. He was pointed at by a gun. There were also a few people in the bar who ran a little slower. Karen Butler was also walking towards the door of the bar, but he was not panicking. He had really experienced a gunfight. On the other side, Mike Robert and his little brother also stood at the door of the bar, as if they wanted to wait for the result in the box. Crack. The door of the box opened. Wang Ke walked out with Senior on his back. His sleeves were covered in blood, and no one knew whose it was. Don't move. Don't even think about leaving. Karen Butler saw Thomas limping out of the box, pointing a gun at Wang Ke. Wang Ke stopped and put Senior on a chair. Wang. You shouldn't have come. This is my business. What about Claudia if you're involved? You shouldn't have come. Senior's voice sounded very weak. You need to rest, don't talk so much. I'll take you to the hospital later. Wang Ke patted Senior's shoulder, turned around and faced Thomas. When facing the muzzle of a gun, what should you do to be the most reasonable? Wang Ke's last experience told him to rush over quickly. The gun is fast at 7 steps away, and the gun is fast and accurate at 7 steps. But this is a duel between masters. The reality is that the gun is fast at 7 steps away, but ordinary people can't hit it at all. So if a gang conflict really uses guns to kill people, it is often effective to output close to the face. Most gang conflicts use guns just for momentum and to scare people. And within 7 steps, people with guns will panic. Wang Ke picked up a chair and threw it over. Thomas's hand trembled, and before he could shoot, the gun was knocked away. Bang! Wang Ke's fierce momentum almost knocked Thomas unconscious. For Thomas's small physique, Wang Ke was like a mountain at this moment. Hey! Hey! Wang! I'm Karen. Lakers player. We're going to play tomorrow night. Let him go. Karen Butler saw that Wang Ke's fist was about to fall, and hurriedly spoke. He and Thomas can be regarded as a life and death friendship. In that transaction, one person died, and he and Thomas did not die. Did you let him go? Wang Ke pointed at Senior, his voice was already extremely cold. After seeing Senior's look, Wang Ke was already on the verge of going berserk. After the other party fired a gun, Wang Ke completely went berserk. No one likes to be pointed at by a gun. That means that one's life is under fatal threat. Wang. Calm down. It has nothing to do with me. I just come to have a drink. But I've been through this before. It's not too bad now. This kind of gang fight happens every day, and no one will care too much. I know you are saving people and self-defense. Leave now, we can still play together tomorrow night. If you keep fighting, you'll get into trouble. Karen Butler is trying to persuade Wang Ke to stop. Are you threatening me? Wang Ke's expression became even colder. I don't care who you are. Shut up. Wang Ke knocked Karen Butler down with one punch. Karen Butler felt that the brain was dizzy, and when his right hand landed, it seemed to be broken. What the fuck? Karen Butler felt that he had suffered an unexpected disaster, and he decisively closed his eyes and pretended to be dead. Wang Ke carried Senior on his back again and walked out. Too terrible. Too horrible. Retreat. Let's retreat. Mike Roberts saw that it was Wang Ke who came out, and decisively took his men away. In his heart, he could no longer have any thoughts of being an enemy of Wang Ke. It's Wang. Should we go to help? Forget it, he seems to be fine. I have a suggestion, we'd better not say that we have been here. Raphael Aluyu, Gerald Wallace, and Brevin Knight looked at each other, were silent for a while, and then nodded. Slip away. What does it feel like to be a teammate with such a god of war? Trembling. The bar became quiet in the early morning. Did anyone die? No. Then there's nothing to pay attention to. Just a normal fight. They seem to have used guns. What's so strange? Retreat. Go back to the police station and watch a movie. The gang conflict in the Angel Bar did not cause any waves in the poor community of Berghead. It was not even on the news. The fights in the rich area need attention. Fights in the slums, is that called fighting? That's their life. Senior, look. It won't have any impact on me. Just rest assured and recover. During this time, I hired a nurse for you, and Claudia will come to take care of you. Wang Ke scanned the news this morning and found that no media mentioned it. This is also in line with Wang Ke's cognition. Wang Ke has experienced such things in the past few years. I'm still dragging you down. I'm useless. Senior's eyes were a little dull. Brother. Don't say that. Claudia had been crying for a while, and her eyes were still red. Seeing her brother, who had depended on her since childhood, being beaten like this, Claudia felt heartbroken. After Wang Ke comforted Claudia, he left for the Charlotte arena. This morning, the team had training. In the evening, it was time to play against the Lakers. Wang. You were late for training today, which is a bit rare. When Wang Ke walked into the arena, his teammates had already started training. Head coach Bernie Bickerstaff smiled and patted Wang Ke, but didn't care. Wang Ke had never been late for training before, or more accurately, he always arrived at the stadium 2 hours in advance. This time Wang Ke was late, which made him look like a normal player, not an emotionless, training machine. I was delayed by some personal matters. Wang Ke explained. It's okay. Go. Bernie Bickerstaff smiled. The Bobcats' morning training went on as normal. After the training, the players prepared to go to dinner in groups of 3 or 4. Raphael. Gerald. Blevins. Wang Ke stopped the 3 of them. Raphael Aluyu, Gerald Wallace, and Blevins Knight were all trembling in their hearts. You were looking at me during the training just now. What are you looking at? Wang Ke said lightly. After what happened last night, Wang Ke's nerves were not completely relaxed at this time. So he noticed this kind of gaze at once. Aha. No. Yes, yes, yes. I didn't look. I really didn't look. Are you okay? As soon as Gerald Wallace said this, Raphael Aluyu and Blevins Knight almost jumped up and beat him up. You are blowing yourself up here. You were there last night? Wang Ke frowned, and his aura suddenly changed. The 3 people standing opposite were stagnant by Wang Ke's aura, and some couldn't raise their heads. I'm fine. Don't go to that bar anymore. Wang Ke waved his hand and asked them to go away. Wang Ke thought for a while and felt that he seemed to have missed something. In the afternoon, the Lakers reported an injury before the game. Karen Butler, one of the Iron Triangles in the new season, suffered a concussion plus a broken arm and was out indefinitely. Such injury information made many media and fans confused. Karen Butler was still fine when he came to Charlotte. The intensity of the Lakers' pre-match training was so high that it directly caused concussions plus broken arm. However, the Lakers were unwilling to reveal more information about Karen Butler's injury. At 8 p.m., the Bobcats' home game against the Lakers was on schedule. When Kobe appeared on the court, his face was terribly dark. The good atmosphere and chemistry of the Lakers at the start of this season will be destroyed by Karen Butler's injury. This is something Kobe can't stand. And the game that night seemed to verify Kobe's worries. The Lakers fell behind at the start. Without Karen Butler, the second scoring point in the team, the Lakers' offense had to rely more on Kobe. Kobe's continuous inside breakthroughs at the beginning were also blocked by Wang Ke. Facing Kobe's impact, Wang Ke insisted on a defensive method of not jumping, which achieved very good results. Coupled with Kobe's poor feeling of long shots at the beginning, the Lakers were already 10 points behind the Bobcats at 43-53 at the end of the half. The impact of Karen Butler's absence is huge. In the third quarter, Kobe threw away the title of Pennsylvania Magician and wore the title of the strongest blacksmith. Continuous shots almost knocked the basket crooked. And under the strong protection of Wang Ke's rebounds, the Bobcats opened the score difference to more than 20 points. The game lost suspense shortly after the start of the fourth quarter. 109-85. The Bobcats finally won a 24-point victory at home. This is also the first big win of the Bobcats in the new season, and the smoothest one. As the saying goes, there is no harm without comparison. The doubts about Kobe and the Lakers began at the end of the game. Kobe. You relied on Shaq to win the previous season. Are you relying on Karen to win this season? When Karen is out, you don't seem to be able to play. You can't win the game. Kobe was asked by reporters at the post-match press conference and left the court early. The Lakers were always reluctant to talk about Karen Butler, which made everything seem a bit weird. That night, Kobe asked the real reason for Karen Butler's injury. The next day, the media broke the news that Karen Butler was attacked in a Charlotte bar. The reason for Karen Butler's injury began to be revealed. It is said that there are players from the Bobcats involved. In the afternoon, the Charlotte police began to intervene in the investigation under pressure from above. The gang conflict incident at the Angel Bar was revealed. A day later, Senior, who was still lying in the hospital, was questioned by the police. 2 days later, the media broke the news that Bobcats player Wang Ke was taken to the police station. An hour later, Wang Ke was bailed out by Dell Curry again. However, Wang Ke still missed the first game of the Bobcats' Western Tour. The Bobcats lost to the Jazz away, and suffered their second loss of the new season. 3 days later, the league officially set up an investigation team to investigate Wang Ke and Karen Butler. At this time, Wang Ke's black material began to fly all over the sky. Gang background? Debt collector? Fine or suspension or long-term suspension? Such pressure began to hit Wang Ke and the Bobcats. Episode 33, Fuck. Did you know Wang Ke had such a background? So fierce. Robert Johnson, the owner of the Bobcats, arrived at the Charlotte arena. He was holding a meeting with general manager Petty Tom. Head coach Bernie Bickerstaff was leading the team on a consecutive road trip in the West. The Bobcats are under a lot of pressure at this time. And the attitude of the team will also affect the official punishment of Wang Ke by the league to a certain extent. Know something? We also asked Charles and Dell. They both said that Wang would no longer be involved in these things. We really didn't expect this to happen. Petty Tom said helplessly. In fact, the team management will not care too much about the private lives of the players. 1 out of 5 black players in the league must have had a dirty past. A few decades ago, the league was just a gathering place for gangsters. After Stern took the helm of the league, he vigorously rectified these things and changed this situation. To be honest, Wang Ke's beating up Karen Butler was not a big deal 10 years ago. It's just that the league officials are now strictly enforcing these things, and even the private behavior of players has begun to be regulated to a certain extent, which has caused Wang Ke to be in some trouble now. Just yesterday, another vicious incident happened in the league. Auburn Hills Palace Arena group fight. Artist rushed into the audience with Marshall Saint, Steven Jackson, and beat up the fans. This incident directly made Stern furious. Such a group fight during the live broadcast seriously damaged the image of the league. The official punishment of the league came particularly quickly and severely. Artist was directly banned from participating in all the remaining games of this season, and his salary for this season will no longer be paid. Many other related players have been severely punished. In this case, Wang Ke's punishment seems to be not light. Although Wang Ke's incident this time was off the court, the hidden gang background, after fermentation, still had a very bad impact. Wang Ke played very cleanly on the court, but what about knocking out his opponent off the court? If he does this a few more times, who will dare to play with Wang Ke? So, why did he do this? Robert Johnson knocked on the table. Although he usually looks neurotic, he will not mess around when judging and choosing specific things. Among the black bosses, Robert Johnson did a very good job. To save people. His brother-in-law was beaten to a pulp. He chose to fight violence with violence. From the perspective of his family, I think he did nothing wrong. It's just that the means were a little extreme. Petty Tom explained, and he obviously defended Wang Ke a little. The reason is simple, Wang Ke has already shown extraordinary talent and potential. The Bobcats played very well in the first few games of this season. If they can keep it up, then the Bobcats will no longer be a fantasy to make the playoffs this season. Publicly, Wang Ke can bring honor and benefits to Petty Tom. Personally, Petty Tom likes good players like Wang Ke. I understand. If he is black, I will immediately stand up to support him. But he is Asian. Or Chinese. As you know, Asians, especially Chinese, generally give people the impression of being low-key and introverted. Wang was too ostentatious this time, and many Asians may not like this style. This way. I will not comment on this matter at my level. But at your level, Wang is still the core of the Bobcats. Don't worry about how the league officials punish us, we will take it. But Wang's core position in the team will not change. Okay? Robert Johnson made a decision. Okay. Petty Tom nodded, this is a good result. As long as the team does not give up Wang Ke on its own initiative. The Bobcats cannot do without Wang Ke. Without Wang Ke, the Bobcats are a weak team that can be slaughtered at will. After losing to the Jazz, the Bobcats lost to the Rockets, Spurs, and Mavericks in succession. 4 consecutive losses. Originally, Wang Ke was going to have his first on-court matchup with Yao Ming, but this time it was delayed. The Bobcats' record became 5 wins and 6 losses, and their ranking in the East dropped to 9th, and they have already fallen out of the playoff zone. Head coach Bernie Bickerstaff is about to explode recently. The only good news, he barely managed to maintain the spirit of the Bobcats players. They lost because the core player Wang Ke was not there. As long as Wang Ke returns, they will be on the winning streak again. Now, it depends on how the league officials deal with this matter. The investigation team has been investigating for a week, and it is time to come up with the results. Once Wang Ke is suspended for a long time, the Bobcats can only go for the number 1 pick next season. But Bernie Bickerstaff is a little unwilling. Feel better? Wang Ke came to the hospital with some cooked food. Claudia has been taking care of Senior in the hospital during this period, which is what she should do. And Wang Ke still maintained high-intensity training during the days when he could not play. Much better. Just no energy. Senior said weakly. The whole person's mental state still seemed sluggish. It won't be that fast to recover. Just relax. Wang Ke said with a smile. Wang. You can't play yet? Senior turned his head and looked at Wang Ke and asked, his eyes full of guilt and self-blame. I can't play for the time being, don't worry about these things. It's useless for you to worry. There is always a way to go. Wang Ke smiled faintly. The league officials have not banned Wang Ke now. However, in order to protect Wang Ke, the Bobcats did not let Wang Ke rush to the away game. At present, public opinion is very unfavorable to Wang Ke. Away fans may make some extreme actions. The situation cannot be escalated any further. Claudia stepped forward and held Wang Ke's hands. Wang Ke patted the back of Claudia's hand. It's okay. Wang Ke remembered the several calls he had received before. Oakley and Dell Curry both said that they should not get involved in this matter too much. Because someone is directing this matter towards the conflict between Chinese and black people. Oakley and Dell Curry do not have much position to continue to publicly support Wang Ke. Wang Ke said that he understood. When you are weak, others can use their strength to kill you at will. Even if the reason seems ridiculous. When you have capital, even if something like, Shaq also did it, appears, it will not affect some people at all. Yao Ming also called Wang Ke and said that he would try his best to find a way to help. Wang Ke was touched, but did not hold too much hope. The Dragon Country still attaches great importance to some things. What Wang Ke is doing now and the situation he is facing may make them avoid it. Think about how Wang Zhizhi got into trouble. Wang Ke shook his head. There will be resentment in the heart. There will also be a strong obsession in the heart to become stronger. Then go and step on everyone. I didn't expect that. I thought I had escaped from that place, but in fact I hadn't. Where there are people, there are rivers and lakes, how can you quit? And when you climb up, you will find that what you are about to encounter is more difficult and disgusting than before when you were insignificant. Before, conflicts in the slums were just solved by both sides hacking each other. But now, others can stir up public opinion and use their power to suppress others. Wang Ke was a little confused for a while. But after seeing Claudia sitting next to him and Senior lying on the bed, Wang Ke's heart became firm again. Things may not be that bad yet. As long as he is allowed to play in the game, Wang Ke can fight his way out on the court. There is still a chance. By the way, Barton was here. He said he was too embarrassed to see you. Let me pass on my apologies. He's a good man. Don't blame him. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rob Palinka, Kobe's agent. There's something I want to talk to you about. You were there, don't deny it. As long as you come out and testify. If Wang falls, you'll be the new boss of the Bobcats. If you're worried about your safety in Charlotte, I can also trade you to the Lakers. It just so happens that the Lakers also need a player like you. I know the conflict between you and Wang, this is your chance. During the Bobcats' Western away trip, the agent named Palinka met privately with Rafael Aluyo, Gerald Wallace, and Brevin Knight. As long as one of the three of them comes forward to testify, Wang Ke's violent behavior in the bar that night will be confirmed. Theoretically speaking, the league officials cannot control the private behavior of players, that is the police's business. But the Charlotte police obviously don't want to waste police force in the slums. There are no taxes. How much money? Let everyone risk their lives. Rich areas should be where the police should pay attention. Under pressure from above, the Charlotte police symbolically investigated, which was enough. So after Wang Ke was bailed out by Dell Curry, there was no follow-up. Wang Ke neither sold drugs nor carried guns, but just fought, which is really nothing in the slums. In a bar, drinking and fighting is normal. But there is one thing that can expand the power of the league officials infinitely. The player's behavior damages the image of the league. In the past life, Arenas held the ball in the locker room and Morant played with guns on social platforms many times, and they were all severely punished by the league officials. The reason is that the player's behavior seriously damages the positive and healthy image of the league. It is easy to teach children bad things. New York, league headquarters. Stern hosted a small meeting to determine the nature of Wang Ke's incident, and perhaps impose penalties. Let's talk about the current situation first, Stern gestured to Adam Silver. Silver nodded and began to report. At present, the Charlotte police have stopped pursuing the case. That is to say, Wang Ke has no problem at the legal level. So the focus of the next discussion will be the impact on the league's image. The Lakers have been unable to swallow this breath and want to prove that Wang Ke violently injured people. However, no breakthrough was made. Public opinion is not good for Wang Ke. The recent Auburn Hills Palace incident and Wang Ke incident occurred together, causing the league to be questioned both inside and outside the court. Fans and sponsors do not want to see a chaotic and disorderly league appear. This trend must be extinguished as soon as possible. So, my personal opinion is that Wang Ke should be banned and fined as in the Auburn Hills Palace incident. Ao Hua explained the basic situation and elaborated on his views. Ahem. What are other people's opinions? Stern coughed lightly and looked at the others in the meeting room. Others spoke up one after another, and basically agreed with Xiao Hua's opinion, that is, to impose the maximum penalty on Wang Ke. That also means that Wang Ke will be suspended for the entire season, and he will not receive salary. I have a different opinion. Stern knocked on the table in front of him. Xiao Hua looked at Stern in surprise. He and Stern had communicated before, and Stern basically agreed with his opinion. Why did it suddenly change now? There must be something that Xiao Hua didn't know about. At present, Xiao Hua is only the vice president, and some information is not fully grasped. The Wang Ke incident is ultimately a fight for backstage. Karen Butler has the support of Kobe and the Lakers, and even Karen Butler originally did not intend to pursue it. He understands the rules of the underworld. It is a series of chain reactions caused by Kobe's inability to swallow this breath. And Wang Ke has no backstage. Oakley and Dell Curry will not support Wang Ke in this matter. Moreover, their influence can't compete with Kobe and the Lakers at all. Unless Jordan takes action. That's impossible. Jordan won't wade into this muddy water. At this time, Silver is really confused. Episode 34, whether the image of the league has been damaged or not, and what constitutes damage, we cannot generalize and simply cut it off with one size fits all. Stern's voice continued to ring. Everyone in the conference room sat up subconsciously. After 20 years of helming the business, Stern's prestige in the league has reached its peak. After the league was promoted to the world, it was finally time to cut leaks. Especially the Longwa market, which is as broad as the sea. After entering the new century, with the rapid development of Longwa's economy, the spending power of Longwa fans has increased significantly. More sponsors from Longwa are constantly pouring into the league. Among them, the Rockets are the most delicious, because they have Yao Ming. Just in Yao Ming's rookie season last year, the economic benefits that Rockets owner Alexander reaped exceeded the period when Olajuwon led the Rockets to 2 consecutive championships. Yao Ming has become the Rockets' cash cow. From Stern's point of view, it is natural to hope that there will be more Longwa players in the league at this time. The correct answer is to take a big step forward and reap the fruits of victory in the Longwa market in one fell swoop. The development of the Longwa market was still very difficult at the beginning. More than a decade ago, Stern went to the capital of Longwa alone, and after blowing in the cold wind for an hour, he pushed open a crack in the door. However, Stern still has a certain understanding of the operation of Longwa basketball. Wang Ke is a negative example. Therefore, Stern has always been thinking about concentrating on operating Yao Ming. However, another opportunity has appeared now. Fighting is wrong. But why fight? What is the motive? The difference is still very big. It's true that Karen was beaten by Wang Ke, but why did Karen appear there? Is he really not at all wrong? Oh my gosh. Xiao Hua almost thought he was hallucinating. What he said seems to make sense. He sacrificed everything for his family. Although his methods were not right, his spirit is commendable. He is the family man. This is not a negative image, but a positive one. And as far as I know, Karen was injured by mistake. Since Wang Ke is fine on the legal level, why do we still hold on to it? Let's stop here. Stern made the final decision. The president has a good idea. Great. Great. Our realm is too low. The compliments in the conference room rang out. Xiao Hua felt puzzled, but he had to take the lead in applauding at this time. The handling of the Wang Ke incident seemed a bit mysterious at this moment. After the meeting, everyone left, and Stern stopped Xiao Hua and handed him a document. Take a look at these, and you will have no doubts. Stern smiled faintly at Xiao Hua. Xiao Chen. Arrange a trip for me and book a flight to New York, USA. In the building of the Basketball Association of Beijing, Longwa, Li Wei, the director in charge, gave instructions. It's time to leave. 5 days ago, Li Wei received a call from Yao Ming. After learning the full picture of Wang Ke's incident in detail, Li Wei made a move. There is no better way to add icing on the cake than to send charcoal in the snow. There will be some potential troubles when making a move at this time, but you can't catch a wolf without sacrificing a child. Overall, the Wang Ke incident is not a big problem. Fighting for his family is also recognized in the moral values of Longwa. Li Wei is a very pragmatic person. When Wang Ke has shown enough strength, naturalizing Wang Ke is a two-way thing. Li Wei did not think that Wang Ke would bow down as soon as he opened his mouth. Longwa is willing to naturalize, but Wang Ke may not be willing to be naturalized. Also, do you really think that the US team does not need a strong center? The US Dream Team 6 suffered a Waterloo in the Athens Olympics and only won the bronze medal. This made the US team start to take it seriously. They cannot tolerate their dominant position in the world being broken. In the 2008 Olympics, the US team must fight back. Once the US team recruits Wang Ke, the Dragon country will be completely passive. Xiao Wang. Replace this page with this. Why? I have been organizing this interview report on Lu Xiong for a long time. Don't ask so many questions, this is arranged by the editor-in-chief himself. Fuck. Xiao Wang cursed in a low voice, feeling very unhappy. He worked in vain to stay up late and work overtime last night. He took a look at the document in his hand, and there was a name on it, Wang Ke. Tomorrow's Sports Weekly, the report on Wang Ke will be the front page. Purchase broadcasting rights and increase the number of broadcasts. Starting from next season, arrange preseason games in Longwa. In-depth cooperation in various business modules. There is also a list of sponsors. Big deal. Xiao Hua sighed lightly, and he completely understood Stern's choice. If it were him, he would make the same choice. This is a lot of money. Business alliance, why not for money? Rules? That is built on money. On November 26, the Bobcats ended their 4-game road trip in the West and returned to Charlotte. This road trip was not a good experience. The Bobcats, who lost Wang Ke, lost their soul and lost all 4 games. Fortunately, today, they got great news. After the league investigation team returned from Charlotte, the league officials did not report any further news. And no news is good news, which means nothing will happen. With the league's swift and decisive punishment for the Palace of Auburn Hills incident, if they really wanted to punish Wang Ke, they would not wait that long. Soon, more accurate gossip came out that the league would not comment on the Wang Ke incident and try to downplay the incident at the level of public opinion. Wang. It's okay. Next, play basketball with peace of mind. Agent Aln Tellem called Wang Ke. During this period, Aln Tellem has been running around for Wang Ke. Fortunately, the result is good. Wang Ke nodded, a little confused. Who helped? No clue for the time being, put it aside. Next, it's time to play well. For Wang Ke, every wonderful performance on the court is an accumulation of capital. One day, Wang Ke will be able to complete the transition from player to capital like Jordan. Wang. Welcome back. On November 27th, Wang Ke arrived at the gym very early, but he didn't expect his teammates to come earlier. They stood at the entrance of the gym to welcome Wang Ke's arrival. Also welcome the return of the core. The Bobcats are complete again. Thank you, you. Wang Ke looked at this group of teammates, took a deep breath, and then hugged each teammate in turn. When hugging Raphael Aluyo, Gerald Wallace, and Brevin Knight, Wang Ke said one more sentence. Thank you for choosing to support me. Gerald Wallace was excited, he thought he had done something very right and brotherly. On the court, Gerald Wallace has established a chemical reaction with Wang Ke. The two of them are now the two cores of the team. Therefore, he rejected Palinka's temptation. Brevin Knight has similar thoughts. He and Wang Ke had conflicts, but they have long reconciled. He didn't want to cause trouble, Wang Ke was his teammate after all. Raphael Aruyu, on the other hand, was in a completely different mood. He was trembling all over. Wang Ke overcame the difficulty again. That day, he was cowardly again. It wasn't that he didn't want to testify against Wang Ke, but he was afraid. He backed off. He lost his chance. The chance to retaliate against Wang Ke. Wait for me. One day. Raphael Aruyu wailed in his heart. A bossy man came to a foreign country alone to pursue his basketball dream, but he hit a wall again and encountered all kinds of unfair treatment. Now he has to put on a smile to deal with the man who took everything from him. It's so hard for me. Strike hard in the inner drama. Be submissive in reality. Well, I'm talking about you, Raphael Aruyu. Run, yes. Give the ball to Wang. It's only been a few days, and you've forgotten how to run tactics. The Bobcats' joint practice seems very energetic. After the backbone came back, everything became different. Bernie Bickerstaff smiled with satisfaction on the sidelines. Tonight, the Bobcats will face the Magic at home. The Magic is not a strong team this season, but they have the number 1 pick, Howard. It's just right, let Wang Ke use a masterpiece to announce his return. It also announces that the Bobcats will set sail again after losing streak. Let's welcome the return of our supercenter with the warmest cheers and applause. Wang Ke, the DJ at the scene, shouted out of tune, but he was happy. The home fans at the scene were also very happy. After receiving the confirmed news that Wang Ke will officially return, the tickets for this game were quickly sold out. For the first time, the Bobcats' home stadium was packed. Charlotte fans have long regarded Wang Ke as their own. Even if their own children really make mistakes, they will deal with it themselves. What's wrong with the Los Angeles media always fanning the flames? Big cities are amazing. Some time ago, the Bobcats fans were very frustrated. The core of the team was in crisis and could not play, and the team was suffering from a losing streak. In the keyboard warrior war on the internet, the Bobcats fans were completely at a disadvantage and were pressed to the ground by the fans of other teams. Now it's good, the core is back, and it's dawn. Many Bobcats fans are ready to launch another keyboard warrior war, just waiting for a key to come. Wang. We support you. Come on. Waves of voices came in the face. Wang Ke was the last to run out of the player tunnel again and waved to the fans in the audience. And this attracted the biggest cheers. In the front row of the audience, Dell Curry and the Curry brothers came to the scene again to cheer for Wang Ke. Wang. No matter what happens to you, you will always be my good brother. On the side of the court, Curry said to Wang Ke with a serious expression. Okay. Wang Ke smiled and nodded, and the two bumped fists. The young man's mind, although second year, but sincere. It seems that after Curry enters the league, he must play brother basketball once. On the other side of the court, Howard looked at Wang Ke, who returned to the court with a serious expression, and I don't know what he was thinking in his heart. Dwight. Are you a little nervous? Grant Hill patted Howard on the back. After a difficult recovery from injury, Grant Hill finally stayed healthy this season. However, the genius who was hailed as Jordan's successor has disappeared. No. I'm just thinking about what method to use to blow him up. Howard's face showed a smile again. You can do it. Grant Hill smiled and said nothing more. Young people, they all want to save face. Francis on the side looked at Wang Ke on the opposite side, then looked at Howard and shook his head. After being traded to the Magic, Francis naturally compared Howard and Yao Ming. The result. In Francis' eyes, Yao Ming's ceiling can compete with the for centers. And Howard is a high-level blue-collar worker, with a ceiling of Big Ben. Maybe he is a little better than Big Ben in scoring. As for Wang Ke, Francis is a little confused. Episode 35, Dear audience, dear fans. The game between the Bobcats and the Magic will start soon. This game will be a match between the number 1 pick Howard and the number 2 pick Wang Ke. In the broadcasting room of Longhua Sports Station, Zhang Weiping made an opening speech. This game was not originally in the broadcasting plan, it was added temporarily. As an insider, Zhang Weiping already understood the above actions. Zhang Weiping has naturally paid attention to Wang Ke. If you want to use a word to describe it, it is awesome. Maybe many fans don't know who Wang Ke is. Wang Ke is not a player from our Longhua, but a Chinese. But no matter what, he has once again proved that we yellow people can gain a foothold in the league. And he can play very well. Su Kun on the side took over the conversation. Today, Saturday, many office workers and students in Longhua have the opportunity to watch this broadcast on TV screens. At this time, the Longhua Sports Forum has already started a heated discussion. Who is Wang Ke? Is there any big guy who can give us a serious popular science? A war god who challenges the entire gang? Damn. I am so excited to hear this. Such a strong player. Can someone who knows about it predict whether Wang Ke can play for the Longhua team? Charlotte Arena. Players from both sides walked onto the court. Wang Ke's comeback battle is about to begin. The Magic's starting lineup includes Howard, Kevin Cato, Grant Hill, Coutinho Mobley, and Francis. In terms of the lineup alone, the Magic are actually pretty good this season. The Rockets used a lot of chips to trade for McGrady. Francis and Old Cat Mobley may not be comparable to McGrady. But is the combined effect of the two really not as good as that of McGrady? It is worth discussing. In addition, the big center Kevin Cato was also traded to the Magic, which made Yao Ming lose a reliable substitute. Looking back in the future, the Rockets really didn't make a profit from this deal. Backcourt double guns, plus Grant Hill, plus Howard, who has recovered from his illness. There are also high-quality role players such as Nelson, Turkoglu, and Doug Christie on the bench. It's in the East again. It should be no problem for the Magic to make the playoffs. But in the previous life, the Magic missed the playoffs. The Bobcat starters, Wang Ke, Primoz Brezic, Gerald Wallace, Jason Kapono, and Brevin Knight. The Bobcats starting lineup returned to normal. Wang Ke and Howard came to the center circle and prepared for a jump ball. Howard's expression became serious again. When he really stood in front of Wang Ke, Howard still felt a huge pressure. The psychological shadow left by Wang Ke on him has not been eliminated. Perhaps only a hearty victory duel can allow Howard to overcome Wang Ke and truly stand up. The referee signaled Wang Ke and Howard, and then threw the ball into the air. The jumping ceilings in the two leagues ushered in another duel at this moment. Howard knew that his jumping height could not suppress Wang Ke. But Wang Ke's height is a natural advantage. Howard can only start from the speed of the bounce. When your bounce speed is faster, you can touch the basketball before the opponent. However, this time, Howard jumped a little too early. When he was about to fall, he found that the basketball had not risen to the highest point. At this time, Wang Ke took off and easily touched the basketball. The early bird does not necessarily catch the worm. The worm has not yet woken up. Oh no! Howard cursed. Losing the opening jump ball didn't matter, but Howard was very upset at this time. Because he already had a psychological hint in his mind that he couldn't beat Wang Ke in the jump ball, so would he still be unable to beat him in the following games? Relax a little. Grant Hill shouted to Howard. Brevin Knight received the pass from Wang Ke and controlled the ball across half court. Familiar feeling, familiar taste. Wang Ke returned, and the first attack of the opening must belong to the Bobcats. After controlling the ball near the top of the arc three-point line, Brevin Knight observed the running position of his teammates and passed the ball to Gerald Wallace on the wing. Brevin Knight's height is a flaw. With a height of 1.78 meters, the field of vision is really too poor on the court. Therefore, head coach Bernie Bickerstaff made a small adjustment in the selection of people to pass the ball to Wang Ke. Gerald on the wing. Wallace, come and pass the ball to Wang Ke. Wang Ke was already leaning against Howard in the paint. Gerald. Wallace passed the ball in. Here comes my brother. The fans at the scene all sat up straight, ready to welcome Wang Ke's first score after his return. Howard inexplicably began to get nervous, trying to push Wang Ke away from the paint. As far as it can be seen, as long as Wang Ke is kept away from the paint, his offensive threat will be greatly reduced. Wang Ke grabbed the ball with one hand and raised it. Gerald. Wallace slipped to the baseline and took Grant Hill away. The left side of the court was completely cleared, and it became a 1v1 between Wang Ke and Howard. Bang! Wang Ke hit Howard on the back. The impact force has become greater than the first duel between the two. Of course, Howard has also grown since entering the league. At this time, he pushed hard with all his strength and was not knocked away too far. Gritting his teeth, Howard quickly pressed forward again. Don't think about scoring easily. Howard showed excellent low-post defensive ability. But the next second, Wang Ke took advantage of Howard's inertia and suddenly turned his back towards the baseline. This action seemed very coherent, and he directly passed Howard by half a body. Bang! Wang Ke had already switched to grabbing the ball with his left hand, and with a long arm, he swung the ball into the basket. So easy. I'm also improving. Compared to before entering the league, Wang Ke completely relied on his physical talent to dunk. Now Wang Ke can already show some simple but effective changes in the low-post offense in the interior. 2 o'clock. Wang Ke scored his first point after returning to the court, and also opened the record for the Bobcats. Howard cursed again. Grant Hill frowned. This big guy is not in a good mood today. This is not a good thing. High school students are really not mature enough. In Grant Hill's opinion, entering the league too early is not a good thing. Forcing things to grow will create psychological giant babies. Magic attack. Francis passed the half court with the ball. The Magic's tactical play this season is not systematic. It's a bit like playing whatever comes to mind. Francis is ready to play the first attack of the opening game by himself. After coming to the Magic, Francis still wants to compete for the team leader. With Grant Hill's Buddhist attitude, Francis' idea is not difficult to realize. The only obstacle is the management. The management of the Magic wants to rebuild with Howard as the core. After a crossover, Francis passed Brevin Knight in one step. Francis, who was still at his peak at this time, was in extremely strong physical condition. If you want to find a familiar star to compare with, it is Westbrook. One step inside the free throw line, Francis kicked his feet hard and took off directly. He actually wanted to challenge Wang Ke right away. Wang Ke took a step forward and jumped up. Facing different offensive players, Wang Ke would choose different defensive methods. Francis's offense is reckless, so there is no need to guard against their offensive fake moves. Just jump. One block and one accurate. Hey! Francis put on the buff for himself. Pa! The mountain is insurmountable. In midair, Wang Ke pressed the basketball accurately, preventing the basketball from moving forward a bit. The huge disparity in strength made Francis unable to control the ball. Bang! Francis' right hand pulled on the basket and dunked the ball. The basketball stayed in Wang Ke's left hand. Blocked shot in the air. Oh! My God! The fans at the scene all exclaimed. Too brutal. So encouraging. At the same time, the morale of the Magic team was plummeting. Wang Ke's return brought a qualitative change to the Bobcats. Yes. 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 Curry threw a series of jabs on the side of the court. Dell Curry saw more content. Wang Ke's left hand became more flexible and powerful. In this round of offense and defense, Wang Ke used his left hand all the time. The balance of left and right hands can play a huge role on the court. This will make the opposing players at a loss and unable to target their non-dominant hands. The Bobcats attack and continue to attack Wang Ke. In this game, as long as the Magic team does not double-team Wang Ke, the first starting point of the offense will always be Wang Ke. Bernie Bickerstaff wanted Wang Ke to swing freely. Wang Ke received the ball in the low post, and Howard behind him became even more nervous. In the last matchup, Howard only needed to hold Wang Ke's back. Of course, Howard couldn't hold it at that time. But now, Howard needs to use his brain to think about whether Wang Ke should turn around and dunk directly after the back collision, or turn half-turn and dunk towards the baseline again. The situation of choosing one of the two has already made Howard's CPU a little hot. Wang Ke chose the third one. Bang! After Wang Ke hit Howard with his back, he took a big jump step towards the basket. This move is called bunny jump in the world, which is Ewing's unique skill. During the special training during the off-season, Ewing also taught this move to Wang Ke. This is the first time Wang Ke has used it on the court. The effect is very good. Bang! This big jump directly shook off Howard's defense, and Wang Ke jumped up and dunked, raging the basket. 4 o'clock. The Bobcats started the game with great momentum under Wang Ke's strong performance. The Magic attacked. Howard sank to the inside and leaned on Wang Ke, trying to play an answer ball. He felt that he had to respond. Francis originally wanted to continue swinging, but after seeing Grant Hill's eyes, he chose to pass the ball. Grant Hill caught the ball and made a ground pass to Howard. Young man, believe in yourself, so that you can cross the mountain of Wang Ke. Unconsciously, Grant Hill himself did not realize that he had put Wang Ke in a higher position than Howard. However, Wang Ke is a rookie like Howard. Howard is still the top pick. Huh. Howard took a deep breath. Come on. Let's do it. Episode 36, here it comes. Warcraft, Howard vs. Wang Ke. Wait. Doesn't Wang Ke have a domineering nickname? It seems he doesn't have one. Then we must give him one. Yes. Let's brainstorm and think about it together. Wang Ke's strong performance at the beginning made the Dragon Country fans feel excited. Attracting fans, that's a matter of a moment. Yao Ming's playing style is really not that explosive. On the court, Howard's position is not good, a little outside. Wang Ke will naturally not let Howard position very deep. And the reason why Wang Ke can position very deep in the offense is not Howard, martial ethics, but Howard can't stand Wang Ke. Howard almost received the ball near the free throw line. Bang! Bang! Howard's back-to-back play began. After 2 violent collisions, Howard turned his back and forced a breakthrough towards the basket. Wang Ke moved quickly, raising his arms at the same time. Then, everyone saw a very different scene. Howard almost drew a semicircle along the edge of the 3-second zone. The back-turning breakthrough looked quite smooth. But when Howard stopped to collect the ball, he suddenly found something very annoying. It seemed that the distance between him and the basket had not shortened at all. Wang Ke could draw a semicircle along Howard, but if he wanted to shorten the distance with the basket, that would not work. What to do now? The ball is dead. Forced shot or pass became a problem facing Howard. Francis was already asking for the ball on the outside, but Howard didn't want to pass the ball. Attack. Howard made fake shots continuously, wanting to see if Wang Ke would be fooled. The answer is, snap. Wang Ke accurately shot the basketball in Howard's hand. You are dancing the lion here. Gerald Wallace on the side was very focused and scooped up the basketball. Counterattack. This scene seemed familiar. Gerald Wallace's defensive position just now was very interesting. It seemed that he had predicted that Howard could not attack and had been cruising around to pick up the leak. He really picked it up. Gerald Wallace made a one-stop counterattack layup. He is also improving rapidly. This time Wang Ke did not need to make a tip-in. After getting a surge in playing time and ball possession, Gerald Wallace's various statistics are rising. If Gerald Wallace's performance can continue until the end of the season, he will most likely win the Most Improved Player award. 6 o'clock. Howard made a mistake. He really couldn't beat Wang Ke. The much-anticipated duel between the new generation of centers quickly became one-sided. Rather than a peak duel, it is better to say that it is an offense and defense teaching. No one expected that the Magic would be defeated in the first quarter. The Magic's collapse started with Howard. With Howard insisting on single defense, Wang Ke scoring in the interior was simply as he wished. Wang Ke's interior offense relied on 3 simple moves: a strong dunk after a back collision, a half-turn dunk towards the baseline after a back collision, a jump dunk after a back collision. But it was these 3 moves that directly burned Howard's CPU. Every time he predicted defense, it seemed to be wrong. This made it even worse for him who couldn't defend Wang Ke. After the first quarter, the Bobcats scored a 33-9 single-quarter score, leading the Magic by 24 points in a single quarter. Wang Ke scored 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3 blocks and 1 steal, dominating offense and defense. And Howard, 0 points and 2 rebounds. Salute to Yao Ming. After sitting back on the bench, Wang Ke also scratched his head. He kind of understood why Howard was called Yao Ming's toy in his previous life. It's really easy to blow up Howard. This doesn't mean that Howard is a fake trash. But Howard's wonderful psychological activities make him look like an undercover. For example, Howard refused his teammates to come to help defend. In the Magic team, Howard was still valued by the team management and established as a potential core. Therefore, Howard strongly asked his teammates not to help defend, and his teammates could only, reluctantly, sit and watch him get blown up. If Howard used more forward and cooperated with teammates to double-team defense, then Wang Ke would have to change his offensive strategy, and he would no longer play so easily in the low post like in the first quarter. For example, Howard's low post offense was obviously very poor, but he had to force himself to benchmark himself against the four major centers and constantly challenge Wang Ke in the low post. The result is obvious. If Howard is willing to do more if he plays a pick and roll, with his jumping ability and impact, he can still cause a lot of trouble to Wang Ke's defense. Because once the pick and roll is played, Wang Ke needs to take into account not only Howard, but also the ball handler involved in the pick and roll. But Howard just wants to choose the wrong answer and feed the tiger with his own body. What can Wang Ke do? He can only help him. On the bench of the Magic team, Howard had a white towel on his head, lowered his head, and his facial expression was a little unclear. The game was played like this, which was a devastating blow to Howard's self-confidence. In the previous games, Howard also had a highlight performance. In the game against the Mavericks, Howard scored 15 points and 11 rebounds, and got a double-double for the first time in his career. 3 days later, in the game against the 76ers, Howard scored 9 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 blocks. For a high school student, this is already very good. But it is completely incomparable with Wang Ke. Although Wang Ke is 2 years older than Howard, he has never been to college, and has not even played in the high school league. Therefore, Howard cannot find excuses and comfort from the perspective of age. Coach, I don't think Dwight can continue to play in this game. If he continues to play, I'm afraid he will fall and can't get up. Grant Hill suggested to head coach Davis. Grant, have you ever thought that if he is not allowed to play, it will be a bigger blow to his self-confidence? I don't think Dwight will even have the courage to play. Davis frowned and denied Grant Hill's suggestion. Grant Hill nodded and said no more. Years of injuries have left Grant Hill covered in bruises. The sharpness is long gone, and the edges are also smoothed. However, Davis soon regretted not listening to Grant Hill's advice. Howard, who continued to play, was mentally broken. As the playing time increased, Howard's data became more and more ugly. After the third quarter, the Magic team was already 41 points behind the Bobcats at 56-97. The huge score difference caused the Magic team to fall into chaos. Howard kept throwing discus in a self-destructive manner on the court, either being blocked or hitting the iron. And Francis also started the blind throwing mode. Grant Hill tried hard to maintain the overall situation, but to no avail. In terms of the team's paper strength, the Magic team is actually much better than the Bobcats. But it is obvious that the team's real combat power is not determined by paper strength. After Wang Ke returned, the Bobcats quickly twisted into a rope. The Magic team was a mess. Francis was competing for the team leader. But the team management wanted to support Howard as the cornerstone of the team. But Howard's performance on the court couldn't suppress Francis at all. Francis was impressed by Yao Ming, but he sneered at Howard. The fourth quarter of the game has become a real garbage time. Both sides sent out the substitute lineup to fight each other. Howard's data was fixed at 0 of 13 shots, 0 of 4 free throws, 0 points, 5 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 blocks, 0 steals, 7 turnovers, and 4 fouls. 5 rebounds became the only fig leaf. And Wang Ke, on the other hand, scored 51 points, 17 rebounds, 2 assists, 7 blocks, 1 steal, 3 turnovers and 3 fouls. In terms of data, Howard was blown to pieces. Punched out after 3 quarters. To be fair, Wang Ke was a little suspicious of brushing data in this game, and the number of shots was a bit too much. Under normal circumstances, Wang Ke would not play like this. Reasonable offense and defense have always been Wang Ke's style and characteristics. But in this first game after his comeback, Wang Ke was full of energy and swung his body to vent the pent-up emotions in his heart. Such an effect is undoubtedly extremely explosive. This is the first single-game score of 50+ in the entire league in the new season. And it belongs to a rookie. This has a completely different meaning. Before, Wang Ke's performance and data made the media and fans think that the future is promising. Now after scoring 51 points, the media and fans think that Wang Ke will become a superstar. There are not many people who really understand basketball, and most of the media and fans are just watching the excitement. And scoring high points is the biggest excitement on the basketball court. If Wang Ke scores 70+, he will definitely surpass the 4 centers in the eyes of the media and fans. It has to be said that sometimes brushing data will still be very beneficial. In the previous life, Booker and Lillard scored 70 plus, which has improved their status in the league. They always need some masterpieces. During the timeout of the fourth quarter, Wang Ke's amazing data in this game was shown on the big screen in the center of the arena again. And this made all the Bobcats fans in the audience stand up and applaud Wang Ke. Thunderous applause. Oh my god. So scary. What is Yao Ming's highest score? Has he been surpassed by Wang Ke? Yes. Yao Ming's current highest score in a single game is 41 points. Wang Ke has already scored 10 more points. It's so scary. This is only the 7th game of Wang Ke's career. The young man has a bright future. Hey. It would be great if he was a player from our Langua. I think he is better than Yao Ming. Although he is a little worse than Yao Ming, he is really strong. Wang Ke looks no different from our Langua people. Can't the Basketball Association think of a solution? Maybe there is. Wow. Wang Ke and Yao Ming are invincible in the interior. Has anyone thought of a nickname for Wang Ke? On the Langua Sports Forum, the number of posts is getting higher and higher. The discussion about Wang Ke has become particularly heated. At this time, in the broadcast room of Langua Sports Station, Zhang Weiping and Su Kun were also shocked by Wang Ke's performance. I think Wang Ke's performance is just right. So far, we are performing a perfect script. I am even more looking forward to the 2008 Olympics at home. At the end of the broadcast, Zhang Weiping said these meaningful words. The strongest rookie in history, Wang Ke. Beat Howard, the best rookie award is no suspense. Both on and off the court, Wang Ke is pushing all the way. This is so unfair. Indiana, Arteist angrily threw a stack of newspapers to the ground. They are both fighting. Why is he suspended for a whole season, while Wang Ke is fine? It's okay to be suspended, but he can't get his salary. This is what Arteist cares about the most. Otherwise, you can get money without playing games. That's called lying down. It's still very pleasant. I'll remember you. Arteist decided that next time he met Wang Ke, he would do something, whether on or off the court. Swish. Swish. In Miami, on the training ground of American Airlines Arena, the sound of basketballs entering the net continued to ring out. Wang. Your offense is too coquettish. A fat man said with a smile. He was not shouting Wang Ke, but Wang Zhizhi. This fat man was O'Neal. Without O'Neal's confrontation intensity, Wang Zhizhi's offensive steps seemed gorgeous. The three-pointer from the outside was also particularly accurate. Shaq. Don't bury me. Wang Zhizhi smiled bitterly. In the last game between the Heat and the Celtics, Wang Zhizhi was DNP again. He has not received even 1 second of playing time for 3 consecutive games. In the next game, the Heat will host the Bobcats at home. That phenomenal rookie Wang Ke will come to Miami. Wang Zhizhi always remembers the words Wang Ke said to him, hold on. There will be a turnaround. Don't give up. At Miami International Airport, Li Wei and his assistant Xiao Chen got off the plane. In New York, Li Wei and Stern had an in-depth meeting. Now here, Li Wei wants to watch a game live. Bobcats vs. Heat. The game between Wang Ke and Wang Zhizhi. Episode 37. It is said that the beaches in Miami are very nice. There are those without clothes. On the plane to Miami, Rafael Arroyo said to his teammates in a low voice. He has now become the atmosphere group, and in this way, he is brushing his presence in the team. Rafael. How do you, a Brazilian, know so much about these? Gerald Wallace is full of curiosity. That's why I came to the United States. Rafael Arroyo smiled. It is said that Brazilian girls are more popular. Eddie House added. It's not good to be too wild. Easy to break. Rafael Arroyo waved his hand. Easy to break? Hiss. It's so exciting. Everyone around took a breath and looked down subconsciously. Rafael Arroyo said with a smile, glancing at Wang Ke from the corner of his eyes, wanting to see if Wang Ke would be attracted by the topic here. It's a pity that Wang Ke was unmoved and was resting with his eyes closed. In the game against the Heat, there is O'Neal. Wang Ke will face a real test. In the previous game, the opponents the Bobcats encountered were not strong, at least not strong in the interior. So, Wang Ke can play with ease. Howard? Wang Ke's toy. But this time is different. After trading for O'Neal, the Heat has become a top team in the East. And O'Neal is still at the tail end of his peak, and he is still the terrible shark. The decline in data does not mean anything, but O'Neal's playing style has changed a little. When he was on the Lakers, O'Neal was holding back and competing with Kobe. But after coming to the Heat, O'Neal has been very open-minded, and he doesn't want to fight anymore. He is even willing to be a supporting role next to Wade. Kobe, MMP. If you had done this earlier, we could have continued to win the championship. What I want is not the status of team boss. O'Neal's mentality has made the Heat quickly produce a good chemical reaction. Under Riley's leadership, the Heat has shown extremely strong combat power. This game will be a big test for Wang Ke. In the first Yao-Shaq duel, Yao Ming scored 10 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 6 blocks, which is still very good. O'Neal scored 31 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 assists, and he beat Yao Ming in data and performance. What about this Wang-Shaq duel? Wang Ke is trying to adjust his mentality. If he still plays the next game with the mentality of playing Howard, he will be abused by O'Neal. Wang Ke still needs more time to grow. In terms of game experience alone, Wang Ke is far behind O'Neal. November 30th, 8 p.m., Miami, American Airlines Center. Wang Ke walked into the court with the team as usual. After trying a few three-pointers, Wang Ke practiced a few low-post steps. And during this process, Wang Ke always felt that someone was watching him. That's not right. The Bobcats haven't played yet to warm up, who else would pay attention to him except Wang Ke? Wang Ke glanced around the audience with some doubts. He saw a person looking at him with a smile. Wang Ke was stunned. The muscles on his face even trembled uncontrollably, and all kinds of feelings in his heart suddenly burst out and gathered together. Fear. Nervous. Expectation. And a hint of fantasy. Dodgy. Long time no see. Let's talk after the game. Li Wei smiled, stood up and waved to Wang Ke, then sat down again. The Wang Ke incident did not happen during Li Wei's term. Li Wei's reform ideas for Longwa basketball are more open, and he strives to keep pace with the international community. Therefore, Li Wei invited foreign coach Dell Harris to become the head coach of the Longwa team. After the Athens Olympics, the head coach of the Longwa team became the more suitable Jonas. Li Wei has always been optimistic and open about Wang Ke's return. After in-depth communication with Yao Ming, Li Wei is ready to have a double happiness by taking advantage of the Wang Ke incident and solve the problem of Wang Ke's return together. Director. The atmosphere here feels so good. Assistant Xiaochen couldn't help but sigh. The scene here is full of professionalism. Their league has been developed for decades. And our league has only been around for less than 10 years. There is still a long way to go. Let's go. I already have a North Star plan. I hope to make our league develop better and faster. Li Wei said with a smile. Director. That big guy must be Wang Ke. Xiaochen pointed to the other side of the court. The Bobcats players have already walked onto the court one after another. Wang Ke's height stands out among them. He really looks about the same height as Yao Ming. He feels stronger than Yao Ming. Li Wei praised. Want to say hello? No hurry. Let's talk after the game. Let's watch the game first. Li Wei smiled faintly. Wang Ke did not notice Li Wei in the audience. Even if he noticed, he would not care, because Wang Ke did not know him. It is not uncommon to see Asian faces in the United States. Wang Ke just went to say hello to Wang Ke. At this time, Wang Ke seemed to be in a strange mood, and Wang Ke just guessed that he was depressed because he did not get a chance to play. After another 10 minutes, the game was about to start. Wang. Tonight is a duel between you and Shaq. Don't be stressed. Just play like usual. Don't be nervous. Head coach Bernie Bickerstaff called Wang Ke to his side and gave him some instructions. Such a duel is a very valuable experience for Wang Ke's growth. Bernie Bickerstaff doesn't want to restrict Wang Ke too much. No matter how Wang Ke performs against O'Neal, it is an opportunity to gain experience. As for Wang Ke losing confidence after being abused by O'Neal? Not happening. Bernie Bickerstaff is not worried at all. Wang Ke is not the high school student, Howard. Bernie Bickerstaff thought of Howard and smiled again. There is a rumor that after the last game, Howard went to see a psychologist after returning to Orlando. Hey. Fortunately, we chose Wang Ke. Thinking of this, Bernie Bickerstaff had to admire the vision of the neurotic boss again. Although the boss's consideration was not about basketball, the effect was perfect. I understand, Wang Ke nodded solemnly. The game started soon. The Heat started with O'Neal, Haslam, Eddie Jones, Damon Jones, and Wade. There were also good role players such as Christian Lettner and Rasul Butler sitting on the bench. If nothing unexpected happens, Alonzo Mourning will return to the Heat in a while. It has to be said that Riley is a bit of a bad taste in many cases. After Alonso Mourning returns to the team, the Heat will have gathered the top 3 rookies of the 92nd class. O'Neal, the number 1 pick. The second pick, Alonso Mourning. The third pick, Christian Leitner. The Bobcats starters, Wang Ke, Primoz Brezic, Gerald Wallace, Jason Capono, and Brevin Knight. Wang Ke and O'Neal came to the center circle. O'Neal looked at Wang Ke, then glanced at Wang Ke on the bench, and suddenly he felt a little face-blind, thinking that the two looked alike. O'Neal had a similar feeling when he looked at Yao Ming and Wang Ke. This is the same as how the Dragon people look at Lao He, it is often difficult to tell them apart. Wang. Orientals are all this tall. O'Neal gestured a dragon kung fu fist-holding gesture towards Wang Ke. Huh? Wang Ke raised his eyebrows. O'Neal really has the attribute of showing off. This trick was learned from Wang Ke. It seems that although Wang Ke does not get many opportunities to play, he still has a good relationship with his teammates. I am just average, Wang Ke smiled and gave O'Neal a fist bump. Wow. O'Neal also laughed, thinking Wang Ke was interesting and funny. After Wang Ke scored 51 points in the last game, he was reported a lot by the media. O'Neal had naturally heard of Wang Ke's name. But it's hard to say how much O'Neal values Wang Ke. O'Neal has fought his way through the peak periods of Ewing, Olajuwon, and David Robinson. In the past few seasons, O'Neal is the undisputed number 1 in the league. Since last season, O'Neal has shown a slight decline, but it's not something that Wang Ke can touch at will. Wang Ke won the jump ball without suspense. After a significant increase in weight, O'Neal can't jump much. At this time, O'Neal's real tonnage is probably heading for 160 kilograms. Wang Ke's tonnage seems a bit light in front of O'Neal. Brevin Knight received the ball from Wang Ke and crossed the half court. The Bobcats' opening offensive tactics remained unchanged. After the ball was passed from the outside, it came to Wang Ke's hands inside. Wang Ke felt the confrontation and strength from O'Neal, which was a world of difference from the matchup in the previous game. This time, Wang Ke failed to succeed in getting deeper, and his position was a little outside. However, he had to fight, even if O'Neal was behind him. Bang! Bang! Wang Ke couldn't play tricks at this time, only the purest hard-hitting. Oh no! O'Neal found that he still had some misjudgments about Wang Ke's strength. This rookie who looked a little green was really tough in confrontation and was not afraid at all. But it was not a big problem for O'Neal. The huge tonnage made O'Neal stand there without too much effort, just like a mountain. Wang Ke's continuous backbumping did not completely knock O'Neal away. Such feedback made Wang Ke's heart tremble, but hesitation at this time was a taboo. Once the ball stopped, Wang Ke's attack would be completely blocked by O'Neal, and there might be mistakes. Bang! After backbumping O'Neal again, Wang Ke directly made a big jump step. Oh my gosh! O'Neal had a very familiar feeling at this moment. Wang Ke's long legs made it very convenient for him to jump and distance himself from the defender. Even if it was only 1 second, it was enough. Bang! Haslam's help defense did not interfere with Wang Ke's strong start at all. Grab the ball with his right hand and swing the frame with one arm. Wang Ke dunked Haslam. Roar! After the dunk, Wang Ke raised his arms and roared. At this moment, Wang Ke was really excited. He singled out O'Neal and succeeded. He also dunked Haslam. O'Neal and Haslam looked at each other, and then patted Haslam on the shoulder. The young man smashed it, very brave. This season, O'Neal has no problem defending low-post defense, and his inside defense is also above average. But after getting older, O'Neal will habitually relax on the defensive end, and needs Haslam to clean up his mess. In the defense just now, after Wang Ke's jump step, O'Neal's footsteps of following defense were not so active. A few years ago, O'Neal once made a very crazy statement: Ewing and Mourning's back-to-back play is stupid. Every time, they only back-bump twice and then a jump step. It's so easy to defend. This time, Wang Ke used this method to make a hit. 2 o'clock. Wang Ke's first attack success rate is still guaranteed. Episode 38. I'm rough. I'm rough. I'm rough. Xiaochen in the audience hit 3 consecutive dunks with 1 click. Where has he seen such a scene in person? There are very few Dragon players who dunk like this. Due to his arm span and jumping problems, Yao Ming's dunks are not so free and domineering. Speaking of which, Yao Ming's jumping ability is really bad. It is said that Yao Ming could only barely dunk after he grew to more than 2 meters. Fortunately, if his jumping ability is not enough, he can make up for it with his height. Now Yao Ming doesn't have much impact if he doesn't jump. Sorry, director, I was too excited to watch. After the excitement, Xiaochen realized that he had cursed in front of the leader. It's okay. It's a good thing for young people to be passionate. Don't be dull. Wang Ke's dunks are really domineering. Seeing is believing. Li Wei laughed. Facing O'Neal, he was not at all inferior and chose to confront him directly. He was really tough. Now, let's look at Wang Ke's defensive round. On the court, Wade controlled the ball past half court. There is no doubt that the Heat's opening offense will find O'Neal. After coming to the Heat, O'Neal took the initiative to say in an interview with the media that this is Wade's team and gave Wade the title of team boss. On the court, Wade returned the favor, accommodating O'Neal in his playing style, and gave O'Neal the title of team boss everywhere. Perhaps it is this mutual achievement that has created a championship for the Heat. When O'Neal is in good physical condition at the beginning, the offensive focus of the Heat must be on O'Neal. When O'Neal's physical energy is consumed, Wade will take over the offensive baton, and O'Neal will frequently mention the high position to do pick and roll for Wade. O'Neal received Wade's pass in the paint. Wang Ke just desperately blocked O'Neal's position, so that O'Neal's position is not very deep this time. Who? Wang Ke also took a breath. The crazy confrontation with O'Neal brought about a huge consumption of physical energy. Of course, there will be no problem with physical energy now. Wang Ke just felt that the speed of physical energy consumption was much faster than in the previous game. Wang Ke was trying to experience this. It is said that the intensity of the playoffs will consume physical energy rapidly at every moment. Bang! Bang! O'Neal also fiercely hit Wang Ke twice as a starting move. Wang Ke hit it hard twice, and his feet couldn't stop taking a step back. Even though he had made sufficient psychological preparations, the huge impact at this time still made Wang Ke feel like vomiting. O'Neal came to show his power this time, and he also used all his strength in the back hit. Swish! A hint of surprise flashed in O'Neal's eyes. Originally, O'Neal wanted to pull up and dunk, but found that Wang Ke was indeed knocked away by a step, but he still raised his arms to maintain a good defensive position. O'Neal quickly changed his tactics and made a layup, which hit the target steadily. Wang Ke did not choose to jump, because he needed to take a breath after being hit, and because he was afraid that O'Neal's fake move would completely blow him away. It is true that O'Neal does not have the ability to shoot from mid-range or long range, but O'Neal can also play with his hands very well near the basket. The small hook shot near the basket is also very accurate. Otherwise, if he could only dunk, O'Neal would not be able to play a historical level of inside threat. 2:2. In the first round of offense and defense, Wang Ke and O'Neal were tied. Round point 2. Wang Ke quickly ran to the front court, feeling that all the cells in his body began to jump. Excited. After Brevin Knight passed the ball across half court, he passed it to Gerald Wallace, who lobbed the ball to Wang Ke. O'Neal held Wang Ke from behind. Wang Ke looked back at the position of the basket. This time, it seemed not too far away, but the angle was worse. Wang Ke's receiving position was close to the baseline. At this position, Wang Ke was a little difficult to play. The three-pronged attack towards the baseline was a little bit difficult to use. There was not enough space, and it was easy for O'Neal to squeeze him out of the baseline directly. If it was Yao Ming, at this time, he only needed to lean on O'Neal's wrist and shake it, and a hook shot would hit it steadily, very simple. But Wang Ke didn't have such ability at this time. Bang! Bang! Wang Ke chose to continue to dig hard. After hitting twice in a row, Wang Ke suddenly collected the ball and pretended to jump. Hey! Guard against you. O'Neal smiled slightly. He was too familiar with this jumping step after the back collision. He was not prepared for the first time, so Wang Ke hit it once, but now Wang Ke wanted to repeat the same trick. Was he thinking too much? O'Neal moved a small step towards the middle, and at the same time, prepared to confront Wang Ke physically. This kind of jump, once the opposing defensive player is prepared and can increase the intensity of the confrontation, the offensive player will often be greatly affected. The handling after the jump step can no longer be kept consistent. Therefore, even if Ewing is at his peak and faces O'Neal's defense, this bunny jump must be more or less a gamble on the feel. Sensing the shift of O'Neal's defensive center of gravity, Wang Ke also smiled. All is fair in war. Wang Ke's pretended jump step is a fake move. Hey! At this moment, Wang Ke shouted loudly and kicked his feet hard. Forced to take off. O'Neal felt that Wang Ke was a little too cunning. He looks like a very honest child. Bang! Wang Ke jumped particularly high this time, and his head was already flush with the basket. Relying on his height and long arms, Wang Ke smashed the ball into the basket. At the last moment, O'Neal wittily dodged and avoided being dunked by Wang Ke. Oh! My God! Many Heat fans at the scene exclaimed. This physical talent is too explosive. Behind the bench, Riley's eyes lit up. What a good seedling. What a good seedling. What Riley was thinking about. This season, the Heat's head coach is Van Gundy, who is also Riley's disciple. But the Heat is obviously under the control of Riley, including tactical matters. Van Gundy is more like an executive coach. Attack. Shaq fights back. Such a voice came from the audience. O'Neal felt that he had to satisfy it. This time, O'Neal used his experience to position himself deep, and Wade's pass was also very timely. After receiving the ball, O'Neal turned around and dunked. Bang. Success. Answer. Ball. Wang Ke's eyes narrowed, raised his arms, and shook his head. Awesome. In the second round, the two tied again. Round point 3. Round point 6. O'Neal didn't expect that he would have another traditional center opponent after Yao Ming in his last peak period. The two played retro basketball for most of the quarter on the court. The centers stood and blasted each other. Such scenes are already somewhat rare with the change of league versions. Even though the league teams attach great importance to defense at this time, they will still rely more on outside players in offense. The Spurs, who had always relied on the Twin Towers to play, also began to rely more on Tony Parker and Ginobili to attack from the outside. After all, in the league at this time, except for O'Neal and Yao Ming, there is no third traditional center who can produce output in large quantities. Well, now it seems that there is another Wang Ke. After 6 rounds of blasting, the two are still tied. Among them, Wang Ke missed a dunk. But he turned around and gave O'Neal a big cap on the defensive end. In the other 5 rounds, both of them scored the ball, and no one defended the other. Beep. Big Van Gundy took the lead in calling a timeout. O'Neal was already a little tired at this time, and it was time to enter the rotation. In the regular season, there is no need for O'Neal to play too hard. The coaching staff of the Heat has already made a plan that O'Neal's average playing time in the regular season should not exceed 35 minutes. The playoffs are the stage for O'Neal to show his power. Wang. Do you know that kid who looks like your fellow countryman? Oh my God. He's so fierce. That bounce. That arm span. That strength and confrontation. I can hardly suppress him. Do you really have the mysterious oriental power? After sitting back on the bench, O'Neal couldn't help but call Wang Ke to his side and started to mutter. When he first faced Yao Ming relied more on height and skills to steal one. And now, Wang Ke is looking for physical confrontation to confront O'Neal. This makes O'Neal feel aggressive. After all, he is old. If he were in his prime, O'Neal would want to fight Wang Ke for 300 rounds. Although O'Neal is still a long way from retirement, the decline in physical condition is real. The huge tonnage is a burden to O'Neal every moment. He is an American now. Wang Ke blurted out. Then he also has Dragon Country blood. I'm going to Dragon Country next summer. I'm going to learn Kung Fu. Cool. O'Neal's thoughts were inexplicably scattered. Shaq. Next, you take a break. The voice of Van Gundy come on. Oh. Okay. O'Neal nodded. Van Gundy glanced at Wang Ke and didn't mean to send him on the court. Christian Laettner replaced O'Neal, and the other players remained unchanged. Although Christian Laettner was a rookie of the same class as O'Neal, he was 3 years older and was already 35 years old. His role was to use his experience to buy as much rest time as possible for O'Neal. At this time, another Meat Shield center Michael Doriak was sitting on the bench of the Heat team, who was also filling in for O'Neal. There was also the soon-to-return Mourning. Riley did a great job in building the team. From here, we can see that the management of the Rockets is too rubbish. Because Yao Ming's substitute problem has never been solved. Even for the Bobcats at this time, Wang Ke's substitutes are very rich. Although Rafael Aluyo is not comparable to Wang Ke, his height and weight are there, and he was once a favorite in the lottery show. It is no problem for him to be a substitute. At the same time, the Bobcats have 2 large tonnage Meat Shield centers. Among them, Jahidi White's weight reaches 132 kilograms. When Wang Ke is resting, he can go out and hit O'Neal. The timeout is over and the game continues. O'Neal went off the court to rest, but Wang Ke did not. This is the advantage of being young. In the next game, without O'Neal and Wang Ke facing each other, the Heat suddenly found that the inside line was completely blown up by Wang Ke. Whether it is Christian Laettner or Haslam, they can't stop Wang Ke's impact in the inside line at all, and rebounds are frequently lost. This inside combination, one is too old and the other is too young. Haslam is a sophomore rookie. Wang Ke once again showed what is called unstoppable. Van Gundy found that he had made some mistakes in arranging his troops. And Riley behind him had already shown dissatisfaction on his face. Fuck. What kind of network is this? Why can't I refresh it? It's so frustrating. Get out of class is almost over, let's rush to the cafeteria to grab a seat and watch the sports broadcast. Don't think about it, Longwa Sports Channel didn't broadcast this game. Why? The match between Wang Ke and O'Neal was not broadcast? How should I know? Eh? Has Wang Ke's nickname been unified? It's unified, called Destroyer. How about it, Domineering? Howard was destroyed by Wang Ke, and it is said that he hasn't recovered yet. So domineering. In a math class at a high school in Longwa, several boys sitting in the last row were secretly browsing their phones. If they were discovered, they would be GG. At this time, the network was still 2G, and it was so slow to browse text live broadcasts. Because of Wang Jiji, Longwa Sports Channel did not broadcast this game. Before the situation becomes clear, Longwa will not report any news related to Wang Jiji. Episode 39. After the first quarter, the Bobcats led the Heat by 5 points, with 28-23 away from home. Wang Ke played the entire first quarter and played a very crucial role again. In the first half, he and O'Neal exploded each other, so that the Bobcats were not at a disadvantage at the start. In the second half, after O'Neal went off the court to rest, Wang Ke changed to control the rebounds, bringing a lot of secondary offensive opportunities to the team. The old and young inside combination of Christian Leitner and Haslam obviously couldn't stop Wang Ke from grabbing rebounds. Wang Ke was also the real murderer. Stan. Your tactical preparation for Wang Ke before the game was obviously not enough. During the intermission, Riley spoke directly, without leaving too much mercy for Van Gundy. It's my problem, teacher. Van Gundy decisively admitted his mistake. In front of Riley, Van Gundy couldn't be tough. Wang Ke is a rookie, and there are not many game samples. It's normal that you don't take it so seriously. However, your on-the-spot response is a bit too poor. You should send Michael Doriak to use his tonnage to hold Wang Ke back, and at the same time occupy the inside space, making it difficult for Wang Ke to grab rebounds. Next, double-team Wang Ke decisively. Riley's tone softened. The Heat played at home in this game. Facing the Bobcats, which are not strong, they should win steadily. Riley didn't want any accidents in this game. For inside players, double-teaming is a must-have. Even O'Neal is afraid of double-teaming, not to mention Wang Ke, a rookie. Although it seems a bit too much to double-team a rookie, it's like killing a chicken with a butcher knife. But as long as it can help to easily win the game, Riley doesn't mind doing it. It's just the right opportunity to say to Wang Ke, welcome to the league. Riley had a bit of bad taste in his heart again. Let Wang Ke feel the cruelty of the league in advance. Many stars are awesome when they play alone. But once they are double-teamed, they immediately lose their fire. For example, Towns. At the beginning of the second quarter, Wang Ke sat on the bench to rest. Seeing that Wang Ke did not play, Van Gundy did not rush O'Neal to play, so he could rest for a while. The young Wade is obviously more durable. With the Heat's substitute lineup, Wade continued to cause damage. 3 minutes later, the Heat had already wiped out the score difference. Wang Ke subconsciously glanced at head coach Bernie Bickerstaff, and he wanted to play immediately. Bernie Bickerstaff signaled Wang Ke to stay calm. There is no need to play the regular season like the playoffs. After another 2 minutes, Bernie Bickerstaff put Wang Ke back on the court. But at this time, the Heat had already led the Bobcats by 5 points. The Bobcats completely rely on Wang Ke to play. I'm afraid they won't go far this season. Li Wei said with a smile. Director, great idea. Xiaochen spoke at the right time, doing a good job of supporting the joke. You kid. Li Wei laughed and scolded. So, the Dragon Country team can't just have Dayo. In the previous Olympic Games, when Dayo left the court, we couldn't play anymore. That won't work. So, we need Wang Ke. Li Wei looked at Wang Ke on the court, as if he saw the bright future of the Dragon Country team. On the court, both teams changed back to the starting lineup. The Bobcats attacked. Brevin Knight controlled the ball past half court. Wang Ke continued to fight with O'Neal in the paint. O'Neal really met his match in this game. Because now, there are very few star inside players in the league who are willing to go head-to-head with O'Neal. After receiving the pass from Brevin Knight, Gerald Wallace continued to look for Wang Ke. After Wang Ke came back, the Bobcats had a tactical core. The players at least knew how to play. When Wang Ke was not on the court, the Bobcats played a bit chaotically. In the final analysis, the hard power of this Bobcats team is still very lacking. The back line is too rubbish, and there is no player who can do a good job of controlling the ball. Wang Ke is not afraid of confrontation and melee, so he still holds his position in the inside line at this time, and Gerald Wallace passes the ball in. But just when Wang Ke was about to attack, the Heat's defense changed. Eddie Jones quickly retreated and double-teamed Wang Ke. Wang Ke's face was stern, and he dared not dribble anymore. He caught the ball with one hand and raised it high. Although this move can avoid direct steals and loss of the ball, it also causes Wang Ke to lose the ball. Wang Ke passed the ball back to Gerald Wallace, but the speed and rhythm of the pass seemed a bit poor. This made Eddie Jones quickly return to defense after Gerald Wallace received the ball. It is not easy to break through the double team. The scene of passing the ball to the teammate in the open position quickly when encountering double team, and then the teammate raised his hand and hit a dry pull-up shot, can only be in dreams. If there is such a scene and effect, there will be no defensive strategy of double team. The opponent is not stupid, giving you points. After observing for a while, Gerald Wallace passed the ball to Wang Ke again. Wang Ke received the ball and hit it from behind. Bang! But this time O'Neal also made every effort to withstand Wang Ke's impact directly. Eddie Jones's defensive awareness is very good. He double-teamed again and slapped the ball in Wang Ke's hand. Steal. Wang Ke's turnover, +1. Fuck. Wang Ke also cursed and rushed to his own half quickly. Return to defense. The Heat's counterattack speed is very fast. Because they have Flash, Wade. Everyone's name is very cool. At this time, Wang Ke didn't know that he was also given a name by the Dragon Country fans, Destroyer. Bang. Wade completed this counterattack with a dunk. No matter how fast Wang Ke is, he can't be faster than Wade. The score difference is 7 points. After Wang Ke came on the court this time, there was no immediate effect. Riley on the sidelines smiled slightly. It's a piece of cake. As long as the player is afraid of double teaming, he is not considered a superstar in Riley's eyes. So Riley is particularly envious of Jordan. Jordan can obviously ignore the existence of double teaming. But unfortunately, Riley didn't get to coach Jordan. Riley chose a low-profile version of Jordan, Wade. But because of his height, Wade is actually afraid of double teaming. But Wade can break it with speed at this time. Plan B. Wang Ke gestured to his teammates. At present, Bernie Bickerstaff has built a three-pronged tactical system in the Bobcats. The Bobcats do not have the conditions to implement a tactical system that is too complicated. It is better to play it simpler. Just rely on Wang Ke's strength to do something. The starting style of this tactic is not much different from Plan A. It is still Gerald Wallace who sent the ball to Wang Ke. However, after passing the ball, Gerald Wallace quickly ran to the other side along the three-point line. Eddie Jones still chose to double team. But this time Wang Ke had the expected route of the pass in his mind, and he passed the ball to the other side without thinking. This is a tactic that has been practiced countless times in training, and Wang Ke remembers it very clearly in his mind. Eddie Jones didn't expect Wang Ke's pass to be so decisive. He wanted to chase Gerald Wallace, but it was too late. The Heat's defense was in a brief chaos. Wang Ke's height and wingspan gave him the perfect innate conditions for organization and coordination, a wide field of vision, and the pass was not easily disturbed. However, Wang Ke has not yet developed this ability. But there is no problem in passing according to the tactics. This is the role of the tactical system, and also the role of the head coach. Gerald Wallace was also very decisive in attacking after receiving the ball. After breaking into the inside and attracting Haslam's help defense, Gerald Wallace took the opportunity to send the ball to the side. Primoz Brezek, another tall tower of the Bobcats, took the ball and tiptoed to the board, and easily hit it. Good shot. Wang Ke waved his fist. Plan B was played. The score difference returned to 5 points. The next multiple-choice question was sent to the Heat. Continue to double-team Wang Ke, and let Gerald Wallace and Brezek do the work on the other side. Without double-teaming, Wang Ke will continue to fight with O'Neal in the low post. Yo! Riley on the sidelines raised his eyebrows and took a closer look at Bernie Bickerstaff on the other side. This old guy still has some skills. However, it makes sense that the Heat is ranked first in the Eastern Conference at this time. Let the Heat choose A or B? Riley, I choose C. You play yours, I play mine. The Heat attack. O'Neal made a high post screen for Wade, and Wade took 2 steps and killed the free throw line. Then with a phantom step, he sent the ball into the basket. Wang Ke did not jump easily, but he was not able to interfere with Wade enough. This ball is even if Wang Ke jumped to block, it was basically impossible to block it. Wade's phantom step was too confusing, And it was difficult for Wang Ke to make a correct prediction in an instant, so he could only guess. In this case, it is better not to jump and rely on height and wingspan to create interference. The Bobcats attack. The Heat's double team on Wang Ke continues. But this time, Gerald Wallace and Brezick's two-man show was not played too clearly. When Brezick received Gerald Wallace's breakthrough, he stepped on the line. Turnover +1. Hey. Although the tactics are good, they also rely on the players to execute. What if the execution of the players is not capable enough? Riley chuckled. The only threatening player on the Bobcats is Wang Ke. So just strangle Wang Ke to death. As for the others, even if they score continuously for a while, they can't kill them. Unable to end the game. Riley saw it very accurately. At the end of the first half, the Bobcats were 12 points behind the Heat at 41-53. The Bobcats were in a disadvantageous situation again. Can they turn the tide this time? Episode 40, Stan. I think Wang Ke is a really good player. His tenacity is very suitable for our team. If I have time in the future, I would like to have him appear in the Heat. On the side of the court, Riley smiled and said to Van Gundy. Indeed. If it weren't for the limited strength of the Bobcats, they might really cause us a lot of trouble. Van Gundy echoed, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. The game has reached the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And the Heat still maintains a lead of more than 10 points. This means that the Heat can basically win this game. Originally, Van Gundy thought that the Heat would be able to take the game away in one wave in the third quarter. I didn't expect the Bobcats to hold on to the score. Wang Ke's offensive and defensive performance at the critical moment was extremely amazing. But the other players of the Bobcats were limited in strength and failed to seize the opportunity. In fact, Van Gundy was not happy coaching under Riley's leadership. Every game was under tremendous pressure. He could not, really, control the team, and he could not let the team build according to his tactical ideas. Similarly, the players of the Heat did not respect Van Gundy that much. Riley was the real boss. Finally, I passed another level. Van Gundy muttered in his heart. Sometimes, he really considered whether to escape from this place. Coaching is boring. But I thought about it again. I just became the head coach last season, and I am also a complete rookie in the coaching world. So I decided to accumulate some experience first. It will also look better on my resume. Director. It looks like Wang Ke is going to lose this game. Xiao Chen looked a little nervous at this time. When you go to watch a game with a stance, you will indeed have such emotions. Especially, now it is on the scene, the home court of the Heat. The momentum of the home fans made the visiting team even more difficult. The Bobcats are going to lose. But Wang Ke didn't lose. Li Wei smiled. Xiao Chen. Did Da Ji play in this game? Li Wei frowned slightly and remembered this. Their focus in this game was naturally completely attracted by Wang Ke. They almost forgot that the Heat also had Wang Zhizhi. Didn't play. But if the Heat open up the score, maybe Da Ji can play in the last 2 minutes of garbage time. Xiao Chen replied, feeling a little sad. People can't be compared. But Wang Zhizhi has different things on his back. Li Wei nodded. Beep. At this moment, Bernie Bickerstaff chose to call a timeout. There were only 3 minutes left in the game, and the Bobcats were 13 points behind the Heat with 81-94. It seems that there are not many chances to win this game. It is very good that the Bobcats can hold on until now without surrendering. Wang. Are you considering leaving? Bernie Bickerstaff asked Wang Ke. Although he is the head coach, Bernie Bickerstaff is more accustomed to asking Wang Ke's opinion on whether to fight or not. This is a special way of cooperation between the two. If Wang Ke is really in poor condition in a certain game and doesn't want to play, Bernie Bickerstaff will decisively choose to give up strategically. Coach. I want to continue to fight. My next play may be a little unreasonable, I hope you can understand and support it. Wang Ke said his answer without any hesitation. His eyes at this time seemed very firm. Haha. Good. I believe you. Bernie Bickerstaff laughed. He has coached many players, including many top stars. Tom Chambers, Nate McMillan, Antonio McDyess, Weber. But these stars are no match for Wang Ke in their desire and obsession for winning the game. Obsessive players may not necessarily win the game, nor may they always play a positive role on the court. But as a head coach, you must like such players. The timeout is over, and the game continues. Huh? This is not playing by the rules. Van Gundy muttered. Just now, at Riley's suggestion, he replaced all the starters of the Heat and used the bench lineup. Because with 3 minutes left, they were leading by 13 points, which was a big advantage. As long as they could consume time steadily, even if the Heat stopped scoring, they could still win the game. Now is different from the small ball era in the future. In the small ball era, a few three-pointers could wipe out the score difference in an instant. But the overall rhythm of the game is slow now, and there are not so many players who can accurately shoot three-pointers. At least, there is no three-pointer expert in the Bobcats. Although the Bobcats' plan C is the 1-star 4 shooters tactic, none of the outside players' three-pointer shooting rate can reach 40%, which is still a bit eye-catching. That is, Wang Ke's front-court rebounding ability is a bit against the sky. Otherwise, the Bobcats playing 1-star 4 shooters is suicide. The outside shooting rate is too poor. The closer to the basket, the higher the scoring efficiency, which still makes sense. Van Gundy did not expect that the Bobcats would still play with all the main players, and it seems that they want to fight for the last time. Don't panic. You are just brave. Riley smiled faintly, and didn't think the Bobcats could stir up any waves. At most, Wang Ke would just play 2 in the paint, no problem. At this time, the Heat's paint partners were Michael Doriak and Christian Lettner, a meat shield center plus experienced veteran. Wang Ke still didn't get a chance to play. At this time, Wang Ke's eyes on the bench became a little dim. This game was a little different for him. Li Wei's arrival made Wang Ke's heart a little confused. Wang Ke also hoped to have a few minutes of playing time to show his value. If he really had no value at all, I'm afraid Longwo would never be able to go back. Maybe I'm being sentimental. Director Li should be here for Wang Ke this time. It has nothing to do with me. Wang Ke smiled self-deprecatingly, feeling a little sad. On the court, the Bobcats were attacking, and Brevin Knight had already controlled the ball through half court. After Wang Ke sank to the inside this time, he suddenly went out of the three-point line. Doriak was a little confused, but he still followed him to the outside. He thought that Wang Ke was going to cooperate with Brevin Knight in a pick and roll. However, Wang Ke's next move shocked everyone. Brevin Knight handed the ball to Wang Ke, and Wang Ke shot a three-pointer. What? Many people didn't react at this moment. Michael Doriak only followed to the free throw line, ready to defend the pick and roll. Who the hell would have thought that Wang Ke would directly shoot a three-pointer? You know, Wang Ke's attack range throughout the game was under the basket. Most of them were dunks. There were also layups and hooks near the frame, but the control was not as high as dunks, and they always seemed to be stumbling. Now suddenly shooting a three-pointer, the contrast is no less than a sow climbing a tree and an iron tree blooming. This is a bit messy. Li Wei in the audience also frowned. This may be something that needs to be paid attention to in the Dragon Country team in the future. Can't let Wang Ke do whatever he wants. Wang Ke didn't do anything, but took a gamble. It's hard to catch up with 13 points behind. With the memory of his previous life, Wang Ke naturally knew that there was only one way to catch up: crazy three-point shooting. Either create a miracle or take the blame. Wang Ke didn't care about his hit rate, nor did he care about the pressure he faced after losing the bet. He only cared about the only possibility of victory. Since there is still a glimmer of hope, why not give it a try? Wang Ke remembered his experience some time ago, and his shot at this time became particularly determined. The shot was very stable. Due to the sudden shot, Wang Ke was not disturbed too much, and it was almost an open position. The basketball drew a perfect arc in the air. Then, swish! The three-pointer was scored. 84-94. The score difference was back to 10 points. And the Bobcats' offense took only 11 seconds this round. There's still time. Yes. 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 Wang Ke waved his arms fiercely and ran back to the half-court quickly. Defense! Wang Ke yelled at his teammates. Oh. My God. Can this go in? You guessed it. You're so lucky. There was a roar in the audience. The home fans of the Heat were all a little confused. It's not completely unheard of for a center to shoot a three-pointer these days. Wang Ke and their team did it. This is alive. But the three-pointer happened to Wang Ke, which seemed a bit out of place. Because of this game, Wang Ke has left the image of a tough guy, macho man, to the fans of the Heat. And the center who shoots three-pointers in this era will definitely be scolded as sissy. A real man will definitely choose to fight in the interior. The Heat attack. Kenyon Dooling controlled the ball and consumed time. When there were only 5 seconds left in the offensive round, he started to attack. With Doriak's pick and roll, Dooling broke through to the three-point line in one step and directly threw a long two-pointer. Wang Ke stepped forward to interfere. Bang! It didn't go in. Brezek took the rebound and handed it to Brevin Knight to advance. Brevin Knight made eye contact with Wang Ke. After quickly controlling the ball near the three-point line, Brevin Knight chose a strong breakthrough. The Heat's defense subconsciously shrank. There is nothing wrong with this choice. Brevin Knight jumped up and turned around to throw the ball outside the three-point line. Wang Ke just came to the top of the arc and received the pass. The meat shield center Doriak took a few steps out slowly, not realizing what he should do most. In fact, the entire Heat team did not realize that no one rushed to defend Wang Ke quickly. What threat can a big center catch the ball outside the three-point line? Thinking inertia is not so easy to reverse, even if Wang Ke just hit a three-pointer in the last round. Wang Ke had plenty of time to glance at the basket, then jumped up and shot another three-pointer. No way. Riley sat up straight. Swish. The crisp and pleasant sound of the basketball entering the net sounded. Wang Ke scored another three-pointer. 87-94. The score difference returned to more than 10 points, with 7 points left. Beep. Big Van Gundy decisively called a timeout. There were 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the game. In 40 seconds, Wang Ke's 2 three-pointers helped the Bobcats recover 6 points. The suspense of this game came back in an instant. Li Wei felt that he didn't know what kind of mood to judge. After all, he was just thinking that he needed to give Wang Ke a proper beating after he was successfully naturalized. These 2 three-pointers can certainly be said to be luck. But if Wang Ke hadn't taken such a gamble and thrown it, there would be no such luck. If the Bobcats had replaced the substitutes and surrendered after the last timeout, there would be no suspense in the game. Li Wei felt that his basketball philosophy had been impacted. It seems that the steps can be taken a little bigger. Some old ideas need to be broken. Roar. Wang Ke on the court roared again. Gerald Wallace rushed over and celebrated with Wang Ke by bumping his chest passionately. At this moment, the cohesion of the Bobcats was enhanced again. Wang Ke played like a team leader should, carrying the team forward,